All right, welcome everyone. We'll have some, I think Ivan will join us a little bit later, but this morning we have Martha Eason. Welcome, Martha. Interestingly enough, you all met Craig and Karen earlier. We all met in the same summer. Craig was a principal artist at Charlottesville Opera. Back then it was Ashland Opera. And Martha was a student at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, and participating with Charlottesville Opera at the time. Everyone that has come here has had an enormous amount of expertise in their field. Martha has a very specific perspective in the FEST programs in Germany, so it will be a valuable insight in addition to what we've already experienced. I also want to point out that Martha is an excellent example of always keeping in touch with colleagues no matter their age. Because I was a young artist, and a lot of times young artists or principal artists will completely neglect talking to anyone else except for someone as a young artist or a principal artist. And Martha and I have kept in touch via social media for the most part over the years, but it's a prime example of how you can learn from anyone of any age in any place, and you never know where you will end up 10, 15 years later. So everyone you interact with, from stage management all the way up to the artistic director, treat everyone with the utmost respect, and you can learn so much from so many different people of all different places in their career and ages especially. So I'm so glad we were able to keep in touch. I'm so glad that we have this opportunity, and I hope you all enjoy. This is just a Q&A kind of presentation with a Q&A, and then we have a traditional singing masterclass tomorrow. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Martha.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's crazy. So when we met at Ashland, I think I was like 18 or 19. I was total student, and I was singing one of the Drei Knaben, one of the three boys, and Magic Flute. And I was like, never really done an opera role before, and I was like looking at all the young artists, and I was like, wow, like what? And a few of them I like still keep in touch with, and so you never know where you're gonna find, I think, inspiration from. And certainly then I was studying music, but also arts administration, and I didn't think I would become a singer. Like, it was never in my mind like, I'm gonna become an opera singer. I just thought, I'm gonna learn what singers do so that someday I can like work at an opera company or like work writing grants or something like that. And you just get bitten by the bug. Like, you want to be the one on stage singing. But so I feel like I want to just have like a big conversation today. I'm gonna try to get you guys to talk a lot. You guys know each other really well, and so like, ask questions. If something piques your interest, like, we'll go on that journey. We'll like take a little side road and talk about whatever. But I would love, I'll end up like talking a lot about like my life, for better or for worse, so you can get like a image of like what is one singer's story of like how they started working, and like what it's like, what the lifestyle is like what are some possibilities. And everybody's so different. So I would love to start with you guys though, doing like an introduction, like introduce yourselves. I wrote some like questions down, but like introduce yourselves. Tell me someone, doesn't have to be a singer, doesn't have to be a musician even, someone who like is inspiring to you and why you sing. So like, name, where you're from, person that's inspiring to you, and like why you sing. I'm gonna forget these questions. Let me remind me. You wanna start? Or whoever. Okay.
So my name is Jun Chan. I'm from China, and I have been in the US for 5 years. I finished my undergraduate degree in FAU, and now I'm in my first year of master degree. My major is vocal performance, and I'm a soprano. I remember when I was a little child, I always liked to listen to like Western music. Even though I was born and grew up in Eastern country. I like opera too. I mean, my dad bought a lot of opera, like orchestra, Western music CD for me, and I listened a lot. Even though I didn't start to sing, and when I moved into high school, I start to follow a professor of vocal professor. Yeah, and I just cannot stop to sing. I love sing.
Yeah.
And I start to learn some like more professional singing technique. Yeah, and many years ago I moved to the United States, and I'm very happy because I know a lot of friends, and the one of the most important thing is I can sing a lot of language. Yeah, because when I was in China, I just sing Chinese and Italian.
Yeah.
But in the United States, Dr. Hutchings was my diction teacher, and I learned French, German, and Latin, and Spanish and Portuguese. So I'm very happy I can sing many kind of music. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. What is it about singing that you love the most? Like, is it, for me, like, I love singing because it feels really, for the most part, unless you're vocally tired or you're like have allergies or something, it feels so nice to sing. It just simply feels good to like sing. But I feel like everybody has a different, so language might be one of the driving factors.
Yeah, I love language actually. Even though I don't sing, I love language. And the second one, I think when I sing, like when I sing, I feel my body's very relaxed. Like after exercise, I can feel the air is really help my body. I like this feeling. And another important thing is I can enjoy the music, enjoy the art, the story of the music.
Yeah.
And different kind of composer, different kind of style. Yeah, I really love this. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. Good. I love getting to know all these like different reasons why people sing. Yeah. So.
Okay. I'm Leilani. The question is just like introduction, right? Like why we sing, kind of thing.
Yeah, like so. Where are you from? What was the second one? If you have a person or like language or like a thing that really inspires you, and like why you sing. I'm
from Boca. I'm like from where FAU is. And for me, I think like when I was a kid, I don't know what it was, but I was like obsessed with singing. Like I would see pop stars, I'd see people that were writing songs. I was like, that needs to be me. So I'd be like sitting on the floor of my house, like writing these dumb little pop songs. And like in 5th grade, like me and my friends would like huddle in a circle, like on the playground and like write in our little notebooks and like write songs. And I was just obsessed with singing, and I would always do it every opportunity. Like I joined the school play because I was like, oh, I'll get to sing. And then I think like it's funny, but I think the thing that really like ended up making me like end up doing classically was I had watched Victorious, and I was like, oh, there's like art schools, like that's really a thing. And then I heard like, you know, from the people around me that there was actually an art school like within an hour of me, and that a bunch of people I knew were auditioning. And I was like, wait, like obviously I knew it wasn't like Victorious, but I was like, I could do this, like I could sing. And at first, like my parents, my vocal coach, they're like, no, you couldn't be a classical singer, like, you know, you're not gonna get in if you try out for that. So they made me try out for theater. I wasn't really a theater kid. Like I liked theater, but it wasn't, I was there because I wanted to sing, not because I wanted to act. I didn't get in, obviously. Everyone else got in except for me. And I told my parents and my teacher, I'm like, I'm trying out again, and I'm trying out for singing. I was like, I don't care, I'm gonna do it, and we did it. I worked really hard that whole year in 6th grade, and then I got into the school, and like then it was, rest was history. From that moment on of like singing classically, then like I just couldn't stop.
Yeah. And
even like after high school, because I'd gone to the arts high school as well, I didn't go into the vocal major because I was like, oh, you know what, like I can always just keep singing. I don't want to do music theory. I don't want to like do all these extra classes. Like I've had enough. It's been 7 years. Like I'll be fine. Within the first year, I was like, oh my God. Or within the first 3 months of not having it, I was like, I'm not in choir. I'm not singing classical. I like started begging my teacher to do classical again because I was like, I have to do it. And then after a year at FAU, I was like, I'm switching majors. Like I need to be a vocal major again. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh, cool. I'm gonna add another question though. So we'll go back like one. Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is a really hard question. And if you don't have an answer, so we'll go back and we'll do both of you. If you don't have an answer, where do you see yourself in a year? Because it's hard to say, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You're like, oh, I don't know, living in Italy. I wish. But yeah, so if you don't have a 5-year answer, like, if you could do anything you want, like, money's not an option, language, any barrier, visa barriers, like, any barrier, none exist. Where would you want to be in, like, 5 years?
In the coming 5 years? Okay. So I have 1 year to finish my master program. I think I would like to try some audition, like to some opera group.
Oh, we can talk.
Yeah, I want to try. It's a good experience because I think I'm still young, so I can perform a lot. Yeah, on the stage I still have energy. And then I think in the same time I will create my own business.
Cool.
Yeah, I think this both thing is very important. The financial stuff is important too.
That's I feel like singers are automatically entrepreneurial, and like that's part of the spirit of like, because you really are going out there and creating like a one woman or one man business. Like your business is your voice, or it's something else, and then you sing, and that like gives you the ability to do what you love. So you have to. That's like, I think every singer I know is like good at that, and that's like a really good one to have. So what about you?
I think for me, okay, it's a bit of a lot, but ideally I'll be done with my bachelor's. We'll see if I finish in the next 5 years. It'll depend. And what I'd like to be doing is finally be in the industries I want to be in. So like the main thing I want to do is I want to do like the kind of like opera singing that they have in like movies and like video game soundtracks.
Oh, cool.
So I'm hoping to that by that point have made my way at least a little bit into that industry. Maybe like some ends of the voice acting industry, getting more into like art and things for video games, because that's something that I do right now as well. And kind of just like move to the point in my life where you're like, you know, I've moved out of Florida, you know, I'm kind of a little more settled, things like that. So that's my hopes. And even now, like I'm working towards making it so that by the time I graduate, I will be in the industries I want to be in.
Cool.
Even before, you know.
Like already having a foot in, like doing some things. Awesome. I love hearing all this. Okay, your turn.
So my name's Matthew. I'm a music major at FAU. I'm in my first year. And I started music in high school. Actually, my first year I was put into high school chorus, and I wanted to get out. Like I just did not want to do chorus. I was like, no, I can't do music. I don't want to do it. And then I just like, I guess like it was just like the first rehearsal. And I was like, wait, I actually like this.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I guess I'll stay. And then I joined band afterwards, and I think my passion for music grew more in band. I think because I was able to like show more emotion in my instrument. And
what was your instrument?
French horn.
Oh, great for breath support.
yeah.
Fantastic.
And I think it was like I was able to show more emotion in the instrument, and then once I started doing solo repertoire, I was like, I can actually show more emotion with my voice.
Yeah.
And I think that's what grabbed me in music. I like the emotion in music. So yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I started as a harpist, pianist and then a harpist, and like it was the same with singing. I was like, you can do so much more with the voice, but it took me a while to like kind of get used to the idea of making music before I was like, you can add text and like theater to it, and then it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then opera isn't just singing. Singing is one of the skills that you need. You can't do without it. You have to have it, but you have to have so many other skills too. But it brings so much more emotion to it. Yeah, absolutely. So what about the 1 or 5 years, like whichever?
Either I'm going into my master's or taking a gap year and getting my real estate license.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have a friend who is an amazing color soprano, and she sings like a lot of places in the States. and she's also a real estate agent at the same time.
That's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah. And I was like, that's so cool. And she was like, yeah, being an opera singer and like talking to people all the time and being a performer, she's like, showing a house is so easy because you're like, because you're used to memorizing facts, memorizing music, and she's like good at doing like her makeup. She looks like super profesh, and it's fantastic. Yeah, awesome, cool. All right.
Right. I'm Soraya. I am going into my sophomore year at FAU for my music education degree. I don't think I started taking music seriously until I got into high school, because I had been in choir in and out since like I think 4th grade or whenever they would have it available like throughout elementary and middle school. I feel like the person who kind of inspired me to go, especially like into education and music, was my high school director, and she's actually alumni from FAU.
Amazing.
Yeah, so she had a lot of tips and tricks, and no one in my family is really musical, so I kind of felt like it was a little bit more personal. It was something that I could go out and explore, and then come back home to my family and be able to be like, oh yeah, I know something that, you know, you guys have all your hobbies, but now I have my own thing, you know, kind of like doing those like little steps to like growing up and everything. And I've made a lot of friends along the way, and I love just like the community. Let's see, what was another question?
Yeah, I was just thinking about like music as an identity and a way of, I mean, it is a way to express ourselves. Like singing is like kind of an ultimate way of expressing ourselves. I mean, maybe I just say that because it's my instrument. I'm sure people who are like pianists are like, this is how I express myself. But then it can become like such a identity. Like people are like, oh, I know somebody who sings who like loves music. I'm gonna ask them about this, or I found this cool thing, and then you create these relationships and friends with people. It's also like with choir. I loved singing in choir because I just like walked into a room and instantly you have like 100 friends to hang out with.
Exactly.
It's like the best, and you're all breathing together. You build trust. Like they've done like studies on like building trust when you breathe together with a big group of people, and like it's wild. Yeah. So wait, the 1 year to 5 year question.
1 year to 5 year. I kind of had this idea that I think I want to get my master's, so that's an option. Also, either just the option of going like straight into the field and everything. I don't know. I kind of just want to like keep my options open to whatever door opens in front of me, because I never want to like solidify something as I'm young right now, because so much can happen even in just a year. Yeah. So I always just want to make sure that I never like settle fully. You know, I want to get that experience and absorb as much as I can.
Yeah, like putting one foot in front of the other, like where it feels right. Yeah, if I had like told myself at like 18 or 19 that I would be singing in Germany like 15 years later, I would be like, what? Really? Crazy. How'd that happen? Like, what? Yeah, awesome. So,
all right. Hi, I'm Brianna. I'm going into my 2nd year studying music at FAU. I really like singing because I'm most happiest when I sing, and it's also a huge challenge, and it never gets easy, but that's part of why I love it. It's a constant challenge in so many ways. A big inspiration for me personally was Jessie Norman. Watching her sing, there were a few songs that she sang where I could just see how she was able to radiate such joy. And for me, it wasn't acting, and I was really able to relate to that joy. And so it kind of pushed me to pursue music.
I love that. Like having a North Star like that, that you're like, I want to be like the singer. Yeah, I think also when you find singers that you like if you see somebody here at Performance Live or on YouTube or something, like go down a rabbit hole and listen to everything they've ever done and try to copy them. Like a lot of singers will say like, don't copy someone. But I think it's really important because try to find like, what is it exactly that she's physically doing that is emulating joy? Is it that her body is open technically, and that breath is carrying the sound out and she's never closing down, which is an emotional thing. And so like, what is it literally that she's doing that causes that reaction in people? I love like going to search for those things and trying to like analyze like what that is. And she has like such great technique when it comes to like, if any singer is like dealing with jaw tension or something, I'm like, go watch videos of her. Like, look at her tongue. Like, whoa, it's wild. Yeah, that's amazing. So, like, what is a 1 year to 5 year?
So 1 year to 5 year for me, I'd like to finish my education at FAU, and then continue to work on my vocal development. And once I get to a point where myself and my teacher at that current time feel that I'm ready to audition for either roles or chorus roles in Europe.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Hi, I'm Carlos. I am a non-degree seeking student at FAU, and I have my bachelor's in music education and vocal performance. The train's off the station.
I get it.
Somebody who really inspires me actually is they're very old. It's Charlie Chaplin. And it's just like from silent film, like you could feel every single emotion.
Yeah.
And then he started speaking and things, and you just were drawn immediately to it. And it just, that to me is one big part of performing on stage, because sometimes I feel like I see a lot of artificial stuff on stage with emotion. And to me, I have an issue with that personally, because it's like, if you're coming to watch me perform, you're coming to watch me perform.
Yeah.
And so that's like the other day I posted a picture from our first performance at the school, and somebody commented, "I can literally feel this picture." And I said, "That's exactly what I want."
Yeah.
What was another question?
Why do you sing?
Why do I sing? To touch as many hearts as possible.
I love that. Yeah.
It's my goal to literally give warmth.
Yeah. I think that's like one of the best things you can try to do. And it comes in all sorts of different forms. That's why music is so varied. We have like music that's like violent even. But in my opinion, like one of the reasons why I love opera so much is that it often like takes a social issue, of which have been around for so long, and you're watching like a Mozart opera or you're watching Verdi opera and you're like, we still have this issue. And this opera was written when? Like how long ago? And we still are like dealing with the same like gender issues. Like how are we still dealing with this? But it like blows up. It's like blowing up an image so that you can almost deal with it. And like you have the fourth wall, that forehang, the curtain, that separates you so you can like, you know, when you get too emotionally involved in something, you can, I feel like opera like allows you to get emotionally involved without like too much, so that you can like deal with an issue. So that's a really interesting reason to sing. That's really cool. So 1 to 5 year question. I love this question.
So 1 to 5 years. Hopefully in the next 1 to 5 years I'll be starting my master's somewhere program wise. And I want to start my master's and finish all the way through to my doctorate in just
Amazing.
one foul swoop. And then hopefully auditioning everywhere across the world, and not just in opera, because I also have a great love for Broadway and show tunes.
Okay.
So I would love to cross into both worlds, because why not?
Yeah.
And then I'd also love to start putting together my own shows of like gender bending roles.
Amazing. Yeah. I've just had a lot of ideas. Okay. Yeah. Incredible. So you guys have all sorts of different reasons, like why you're singing, and all different places that you see yourself in like 5 years, which is incredible. And I think like, especially like, so I started as a pianist harpist, and then I ended up in choir, and then I went to university where I studied arts administration and music, and I really was like, singing was always part of my life. I was like addicted to it, and it was like how it was with my friend group. I was in an a cappella group in college, like singing pop music and beatboxing, and then like I did like a senior recital with like Handel and French, like the classic senior recital. And then I took a year off of school to do research for music colleges and waitressed at like the best diner ever. And then I applied to grad school. I went to IU to get my master's in opera performance. And I think it is like a competitive industry. Like now that I work in the fest system in Germany, like it's a competitive industry. There's a lot of singers and not so many jobs. But on the other hand, when you consider the whole industry of the arts in general, there are so many adjacent things like singing, making the music for video games. Like all of these are jobs within the industry, creating your own piece. Like I have friends in Berlin doing very similar things, creating their own pieces and finding funding to do that. And Germany is a place where, like this is being filmed, so like somebody fact check me. The last time I looked this up, which was years ago, it was something like over 1% of the gross domestic product in Berlin and Germany is going towards the arts, is being spent on the arts. That's actually like 1% of the GDP is a lot for like a pretty strong economy being spent towards the arts. When I was in Berlin, for example, I moved over there on a grant. So there's always like funding out there to find for a project that you want. You just have to go looking for it sometimes. But yeah, so all of this is to say it can be a competitive industry, but because people's paths are always so different, their goals are always so different, there's a place for everyone. And I think that's important to remember, that there's definitely a place for everyone's like dream if you just follow it. Yeah. So my other question for you guys, and just like jump in, what have you guys learned here the last few weeks in your master classes that have been really helpful? And what are some things that you feel like you can get to know from me specifically, like working in Germany, doing auditions all around the world, applying for masters, also auditioning. We can talk about auditioning in other countries, like what the expectations are. I have some notes here on like just the data of like why Germany is a great place to work. So like we'll start with like what you guys have like learned. What are some like really important, it can be anything from technique to like memorization to career stuff. Like what are you guys learning?
Okay, I think for me, some of the biggest technique, like realizing, was that kind of just reinforcing a lot of the things that I've been working on in terms of like volume or tone, and also just the more performance aspects, because that's the thing that I've always struggled with, is like facial expressions and actually putting emotion into my music, even if I'm feeling it, actually showing it. And that's something that I've tried to like really work on while here. And also I think the other big thing I learned, it was a little thing, but for me it was really big, was like realizing that, because I've always had like a lot of different things I'm doing. I'm doing illustration, I'm doing singing, I'm doing XYZ, like million different things. And I always been like, well, these aren't really relevant things, but I'd like to do all of it. And learning that, especially with opera and like singing, that having multiple things that you're doing is actually like learning that that's actually the norm, that that's something you should be doing. Because I had like my entire life was like, okay, well, I know that the things that I want to do aren't necessarily, the money-making jobs. I'm not trying to be a lawyer. I'm not going into any really like, lucrative business. I want to be an illustrator for like small companies, or I want to sing for video games. Like these aren't the big things. So I always knew I would need to have something aside, whether that be like event planning or working for a company doing XYZ. And I didn't think that was the norm. I was like, oh, I'm kind of weird for this. I was like, everyone always questioned why I was approaching like life in college the way I was. So hearing that like that's it, that's what you should be doing, was like crazy for me.
Yeah, I think what I found interesting is I definitely I'm happy also to like ask me any questions, like even my like personal, like, because singing you do with your whole body. You don't leave anything at home. You don't leave your personal life at home. None of us do, actually, wherever we go. But yeah, there is, I think everyone feels this pressure to like do a certain thing that's like kind of accepted, like have jobs that are kind of accepted. But what I loved finding out and moving to Germany and joining so there are a lot of singers in Germany working, making a living. They don't have a side job. Some do, and it's something that they love. Like they have like multiple different passions, and that's like their artistic path, and that is amazing because then they bring, like, I'm an avid runner, for example. So when I'm not singing, I'm out there like running, and they support each other. For some people, that's like I have friends that are coders. Like they create like code, make video games, do all that, and then it's a great job that they can do from anywhere, and they're like singing productions at the same time, and that it like goes together and it informs each other. But what I love is there is a like huge community of people out there doing only creative work and making a beautiful living from it and creating a beautiful life that way. And that realization, like being introduced to a huge group of those people, made me think, oh, it is possible. If what I want to do is like wake up and sing every day, I can do that. But I just have to move to another country, learn another language, like take a citizenship test, like do a lot of like really hard things. But that life is possible for sure. Yeah. That's really interesting. And I think each of our like artistic tastes, like music education, like are become part of who we're gonna, like our paths that we're gonna walk. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Yeah. So what are some other things you guys have picked up in the last few weeks?
In my master class, and even in the class with professor in conservatory, I can feel they gave me a lot of suggestion about the music expression. So which part you have to express what kind of emotion, and stronger or softer, and listen to your pianist. So because the music is work together.
Yeah.
They have not given me a lot of singing technique suggestion. They focus on my music. Yeah, because I think some arias, they are long, and how can I sing in long aria in create a emotional performance? It's not only like every note is flat because opera is like very dramatic.
Yeah.
So I think I have to focus on the music, and how to work with the orchestra and pianist.
Yeah. That's like like I said, singing is like one skill that is necessary that you have to have, but it is only one of the skills you need to have, especially to work in opera. And that's so true. Like you have to learn how to rehearse. In Germany, so what it's like to work in Germany is like we do a lot of volume, I would say. I'll just do a little introduction to the FES system. So there are 84, 85, I could be wrong about this, but around 84, 85 theaters in Germany, and they are doing hundreds of performances a season. So I wrote here, wait, we'll just take a guess. Nobody look at my pages, but how many performances per year do you think are given in Germany? Like take any guess. It's the top there, it's the most performances in the whole world are given in Germany.
70,000.
Higher.
Great.
Higher.
Yep.
120.
Higher.
230.
Okay, lower. Okay, you beat Germany. But 179,987 performances at 84 theaters. And at those 84 theaters, there is a ensemble there that is as a salaried position. So it's not freelance where you go do a project for 4 or 5 weeks. You are there at that theater, you wake up every morning, and you go to work, and you're working on 12 or so operas in a whole season, plus concerts, plus recitals, and then if you have any guest work at other theaters outside of that. So, like, a sample week in that job for me, like literally last week, I woke up on Sunday, I sang Rosenkavalier Saturday night. No, it was, Saturday night I sang Rosenkavalier. I woke up the next morning and we did a Baroque opera for children at 10 a.m. We needed a lot of coffee. Monday, woke up, had a performance for school children of this Baroque opera. Monday evening, I'm rehearsing Chess, which is a musical theater piece by ABBA. Tuesday morning, same performance for children. Evening, we have rehearsal for Chess. Wednesday morning, rehearsal for Chess. Wednesday evening, rehearsal for Chess. Thursday, I had a day off because you have to have one day off a week. So often you're working 6 days a week for like weeks on end. And then I sang a Verdi opera in Ballo and Maschera, and then I came here the next day. So that's like 4 different pieces all in 1 week. So rehearsing one piece, performing 3 different other pieces. And that's pretty normal. Like you'll do a whole ring cycle of Wagner and a bel canto opera on your night that you're not singing Wagner, you're singing Donizetti. And it's a total, so you have to change your character, your expressions, the style of music. You're working suddenly with a different conductor, so you're gonna have to work with that person in a different way. So because of the volume of opera, there are singers who have a salaried position, and what that means is you get, in Germany the way it works is you get 13 months of pay for, of course, 12 months of work. So you get an extra month of pay. They split it usually between December and your vacation time. So, and then you get a 5 or 6 week vacation. And along with that, most theaters are, well, they're all pretty much government funded theater. So you're kind of like a state employee. So you have healthcare that comes with that, pension fund that comes along with that. It's like having a salaried desk position. You just happen to go to work at an opera theater every day. So that's kind of the lifestyle. And not only that, like your contracts are usually given to you for like 2 to 3 years. And then they're verlängert. And you can, it doesn't happen so often anymore, but there are singers, if you stay, I forget the number of years, like 16 or 19, then you become unbefristet, and that's like getting tenure at a university. They won't fire you unless something horrible, like, but they can't let you go, and you're there until retirement age. You'll be a singer on stage at that theater until retirement age. And that's wild because I've been at my theater for 7 seasons, and I know my audience members. Like when I look out, I like know where they sit. I'm like, oh, Noreen, like this person's here. They're here tonight, and you create this community with them that supports you. Like if you get sick and need to cancel a performance, you're protected. You're still going to get paid that month because you're not paid by performance. You're paid on a monthly salary. And they'll find a replacement for you, which then we can talk about this too. You can jump into performances on like a moment's notice. It's so fun. Terrifying, but fun. And that's the way a lot of singers in Germany can make like a lot of money if you have nerves of steel. Or for example, like we'll have like a role that I did this season is Norina and Don Pasquale, and I've given 39 performances of that. So like, if you've done something like 39, 40 times a role, you've sung it that many times, and somebody's like, hey, somebody's sick, can you jump in and learn the staging? It's like, yeah, you know that you can do it. But yeah. So are there any questions popping up in people's minds? Anything you're like, oh, I want to know about that. Like, this was interesting. Wow.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I followed your Instagram yesterday,
Yeah.
and I saw you love to run marathon. Yeah. So my question is, because marathon is tired sport, I think you run a long time. So how do you think when you very tired, it's affect your vocal?
Yeah.
It's dry your vocal very like when you're very tired.
It can be. I actually get this question a lot from my colleagues because so opera, like our instruments are our bodies. Like one of the keys, if you're gonna have, like there are some singers out there in the fest system that are singing like 100 performances like a season. That's a lot. If you have like a week with like 4 or 5 performances, that's a lot of work for your body. That's a lot of deep breathing, a lot of sweating, and it's a lot of muscular work. Like 1 or 2 performances you might not notice, but 4 or 5, your intercostals, like your whole breathing mechanism is going to get tight. Your diaphragm is a muscle that you're using. And it's also, so when you, a lot of singers are, it's important to have a certain level of fitness. And that doesn't look a certain way. I'll be clear. Like, our instruments are inside of our bodies. And like, one of my favorite singers is like a 70-year-old, I won't name them, just big, huge voice, Italian bass. If he flexes his stomach muscles, he will knock you over. If you were like, that man is not running any marathon, he is one of the strongest people I've ever met. So fitness for a singer is a different thing. You have to be fit inside of your body, all of these respiratory muscles and everything. And so I get asked from my colleagues because I'm tiring out my respiratory system because I'm running. But I have to say, I have found in some ways it's helped me strengthen my breath, because when I'm running, I'm focusing on my breath. I'm focusing on trying to breathe as low as possible. I'm doing something that is getting my heart rate up, but in my mind, I'm consciously trying to breathe deeply and lower my heart rate. And that's exactly what we need to be doing on stage. I'm sure you felt in some of these master classes, like you get on stage and all of a sudden all your peers are like looking at you and your heart rate is like, I sang once Serenetta in Ariadne of Naxos. This role is really difficult, and I wore my, like, all of us have like a heart rate monitor strapped to us. And it was going off. It was like, you're like in zone 5, like you need to stop. The aria is like, the whole scene is like 25 minutes long. I'm like, I can't stop. And I'm like, that's from singing. So if you can practice that outside of singing, that's a great tool, so that when you're on stage, you're like, you know, I've been lifting weights. I know what it's like to get my heart rate up, and use your mind. Sounds like very little, like, but you can use your mind to like calm yourself down. And that for me, it goes into singing technique, but it means dropping your pelvic floor so that your diaphragm then can, because we talk a lot of, well, we can talk some like technique philosophy here and then try some things out tomorrow. But our diaphragm is like above our pelvic floor. We can't really release our diaphragm unless our pelvic floor also is released. And so learning, we all know we should take a low breath. But what does that mean? What does that feel like? You have to experiment and find out. And that's how I'm doing it. I'm getting real relaxed. But doing a sport, or like maybe it's yoga, maybe it's sitting and meditating and doing some breath work, but doing something outside of singing will help you connect to that sensation when you're on stage. So you're on stage in a master class and your heart rate's going crazy, and you can think, oh, all I have to do is like think of this sensation. For me, it's thinking of my big toes. That gets me like grounded. I just try to check in with my big toes, but there are technical reasons why some of these things work that we can talk about. But yeah, that's a really good question.
Because when I was a teenager, I danced a lot. But my professor, she always suggested me, don't dance, don't exercise a lot. You have to sing.
Yeah.
But how can I do the both things, singing and dancing? I love both of them. Yeah. So I really wanna know, how can you exercise during the time and protect your voice. Yeah.
One of my favorite singers, Lisa Operetta, she's run a ton of half marathons, and she talks about how it helps her breath. There are some things though, like you just learn, like maybe with dancing. I had a talk with my teacher about this the day before yesterday. Our bodies can do all sorts of different things. We can breathe. We can train ourselves and learn to breathe in so many different ways. Like there are people who train to go scuba diving and hold their breath for like unbelievable amounts of time. Like what? But you can breathe in all sorts of different ways. You can use your torso muscles, like your support mechanism to dance, which is going to be a different use than singing. But I do believe the more different ways that we use our bodies, then we kind of have a mastery over them. And when you're singing coloratura, for example, especially at high coloratura that's going to go through the upper passaggio, your torso muscles are going to be maybe doing something closer to dance, to what they need to do to dance, than singing a long legato line. So to have that flexibility, to be able to do both, you're like, okay, I can, you know where your intercostal muscles are from dancing. Maybe with dancing they're a little tighter, but you know where they are, so you can say, they're tighter when I dance, they're more relaxed when I sing. You know where they are already because you've been dancing. So I think they kind of inform each other, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We use our singer's way to dance. Okay.
Yeah. Like, that's what my teacher said to me, because I've been running a lot, and she's like, you have your running, the way you breathe when you're running, which is a little bit more shallow. Flip the switch when you're singing, sing with a deeper breath. But that also has made it a little bit easier, because I'm like, that's the way I breathe when I run, this is the way I breathe when I sing. And I consciously then am thinking about my breath, which I wouldn't be doing if I was having to. Sometimes if you're challenged by something, then you have to think about it more. Yeah. Good. What other questions are coming up? Hey, yo. Yeah. I made a big list of topics. We got role preparation, memorization. Yeah.
Other than Germany, are there a few other European countries that you'd say would be good options?
Totally.
Okay.
So Germany has the FES system. Austria, I always forget. Like, you should, when I say Germany, I mean Germany and Austria together.
Okay.
Like, their systems are pretty much the same. Also, man, France has like a really beautiful opera scene, also concert music scene. They have a lot of early music there. Like French Baroque music is like wild. And I was always like, oh, that sounds boring. And then I did my first Rameau opera and I was like, this is rock music. It is rock music. It has got a jam. Like, and then you add dancers to it, which usually, like French Baroque, there's like some dancing going on and you're like, this is insane. Insane. I'll send you guys some like videos of my favorite stuff because it's like mega cool. Yeah, and then I mean some like Eastern European countries have like a lot of good music going on. Like Prague has like a really nice music scene. It's a beautiful place to visit. But yeah, like Germany, there's like the 179,000 performances in Germany. The next behind that is the US with 59,000 performances a season. And then there's the UK, Austria, and Italy. And when you think about it, it's wild that Austria is on this list because Austria is not a big country. So like we've got Germany with all of these performances going on, but if you think about it, Germany is like the size of like Texas and Oklahoma combined. And it's like so many more performances in the US. So like per capita, that's like a lot of music. But yeah, I'm trying to think like Switzerland, like anywhere, it kind of bleeds out into the surrounding countries, I think. I did work in the UK and it was an amazing experience. It was before Brexit, so I'm not sure how things are now because it has changed things. Like they've had a lot of, I don't know if you've seen like people's Facebook posts, like the funding has changed there with the arts and it's been this big thing. Like, but there is a lot of, and there are lots of stylistic differences too we can talk about between America and Germany and especially in the UK, different repertoire that you might even sing based on your voice size or type or personality. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What else we got on here? We got role preparation, memorization. Gosh, working with directors, like when you're doing, I have 12 different roles this season, like we do something called Wiederaufnahme, which is like you throw together a production that's already been done based on a DVD, and sometimes like 2 rehearsals versus a whole production that you're creating something new with a director. Directors are really important in Germany. I don't know if you guys have heard of like Regie Theater. They do some kind of weird stuff. You'll be doing things on stage that you're like, this has nothing to do with the opera. What? I happen to like enjoy it sometimes, and sometimes I'm like, this makes no sense. Yeah. what else we got? Lifestyle, Germany visa, auditioning over there, the technical requirements of getting through a season like that when you have like 70 performances or a night where you're singing like Wagner, Donizetti, like Baroque in the next few days. Health, finances, competitions, chorus work. Yeah. Any questions coming up for you guys?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So do you have dual citizenship to US and Germany, or are you like a full citizen in Germany?
No, I did it the hard way. I can tell you, I went through the fire. I'm picking up my permanent visa when I get back, and it's like the golden ticket in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Do you guys know that movie?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, am I really old? So my journey with the whole visa thing, and if I'm speaking nonsense and you're like, what is that word? Let me know, because there's going to be some German words in here. I moved over without a job. And you can stay in the EU for 90 days on a tourist visa. I went over on a tourist visa and started the journey, and it was a journey. I got what's called a freelance artist visa, which are pretty hard to get. And I decided to hire a lawyer. You don't have to, but I went over not speaking a word of German. You don't have to speak German. You can just start at the beginning. I recommend it, like learning some words. So I hired a lawyer to help me navigate the visa system. It costs, I'll be upfront with, like, literally ask me anything, because I think singers should know, like, what kind of, you have to organize your finances to do something like this too. 500, 600 euros for a lawyer, best money ever spent, because she got me organized, and you have to put together like a huge packet of all your documentation, education, finances. You have to prove that you can support yourself, because if you can't get a job, the German government wants to know that you're not going to be over there homeless, not a way to get back to the United States or whatever country you're from. You can get a visa. Usually they issue them for like maybe 6 months, but that buys you time to do auditioning. Hopefully, usually it's for a year. I got mine for 3 years because I got lucky, and I got a contract right before my visa appointment that I was able to go in and say, I have a contract to work. You can safely give me a visa. And if you have your bachelor's, your master's in anything, they can see, they want people coming into the country that have like a level of education. So you're more likely than, and it can be a master's in literally anything, bachelor's in anything. So anyway, so I got my freelance visa, and then you just start waiting, because the thing is, to get your permanent visa, you have to have paid into the pension fund a certain amount. You have to have worked a certain number of years. And finally, I made it to that. And then you have to pass the German language exam, and you have to pass the Einbürgerungstest, which is a citizenship test. Y'all, that's hard. But if you learn operas for a living, you can memorize questions for a test in another language. Like, luckily, you have built those skills. And then 7 years later, I'll finally get my permanent visa, which allows me to stay indefinitely and work in whatever industry I want. So I don't have to sing anymore to make a living, which frees a lot of things up. You know, if my vocal cords like rupture tomorrow, I have my whole life in Germany. I can stay there, and I can, because what's important is to build a life that you love more than the job that you're doing. So that's kind of, it takes a long time, but it's totally possible to go from nothing. I have a lot of friends who have married Europeans, not for the citizenship. Like they move over, they find someone, they fall in love, and they get married, and their visa situation is going to be different. You might have family that you can like use, and it's different when you're coming from different countries. That's my experience as a American. It's going to be different if you're Chinese citizenship, but I have tons of friends who are. It's similar to Americans, actually, to the process. I have a lot of colleagues who are from Korea, and our processes are very similar. We were all sitting in the citizenship test at the same date, and we were looking back like, is it going okay? And we all passed, and we all are getting our citizenship around the same, or not long-term visas around the same time, and then citizenship comes about a year after can. Mm-hmm. So that's like the general. It's not easy. It's very stressful. Like at the Ausländerbehörde, which is the Ausländerbehörde. Ausländer
Like
is when you
foreigner.
foreigner office,
Yeah.
foreigner's office. It's like an experience to get like my visas renewed. I would have to get up at like 2 a.m, wait outside in the freezing cold until it opened at 8 because the other aspect of this is like I came to Germany right when the Flüchtlinge, the refugee crisis was happening, and Germany welcomed so many people into their country, but that also meant the foreign office was like slammed. You couldn't find a appointment for months on end, but then your visa would be expiring, and you're like, I'm gonna be illegal in this country if I don't get an appointment. But there are no appointments, and it's chaos. Somehow it will always work, but you have to get there early. You have to wait and be patient. Bring snacks. Wear warm clothes. I'm not kidding. So you'll have like experiences like that, moving to another country that you're like, how is this ever going to be possible? But just ask friends. Get on Facebook groups when you have a problem moving to another country. Like, how do in Germany you have to anmelden, you have to like state your residency when you move there. Then you get a tax number. You're going to have to pay taxes in another country. Then you're going to have to learn about double taxation agreements, and like, if the more you learn, the cheaper things are going to be, and the more solutions you're going to find. But the skills you're going to pick up are not just going to be singing. They're going to be entrepreneurial skills. Like, do you want to create your own company so you can make your own projects? If you want to do that in Berlin, and you're going to want to find funding, you're going to have to incorporate yourself and get a tax number and learn what it's like to pay salaries, which all sounds really daunting. But when you learn to do that, those are some massive skills. You can do a lot with those skills that have nothing to do with singing technique. Yeah. That's a good question. I don't remember the question, but yeah. Who else? What we got? Yes.
I have one because I'm interested in how you went from. Of course, I met you in your undergrad, and then you went to graduate school. I want to know about the transition between graduate school, including maybe the PD.
Yeah.
And how, maybe not necessarily the decision, but how you just tell me a little bit more about that. The overlap, the dovetailing, what went through your mind. I mean, tell us your story about how you, because we know that you went over and you didn't, you mentioned already that you didn't speak German, but what made you do it? Because you pretty much just skipped over the American system, and that is, right? I mean, am I wrong, or?
No, I mean.
And that's a very astounding thing for me, because you're doing great in my eyes right now, and I want to know more about that transition between graduate school and when you landed in Germany.
Okay, I'm gonna be like super brave with the story because I know, don't cut it, but I'll tell you, like, I'll just give you like the raw story and some opinions about why I left the States. But yeah, so I went to Indiana University. I had a great experience there because I found great people. I mean, people is like where it's at. And I found a great teacher, not just one teacher, but I had great professors there. And there's the Georgina Joshi Fellowship at IU, which is a kind of a grant program that you can apply for. And because I had studied arts administration, I think in singing, like, you have a lot of doubts, and I'd studied arts administration, and that fed into my doubt of my ability to become a professional singer. I thought, there are other people out there, like going to Ashland and seeing like the young artists, I was like, they're gods, like, I'll never be like that. Like, I have this like tiny little voice, and I'm a book nerd, like I study, I'm not a performer. I've learned how to communicate, but I'm like naturally a really shy, pretty introverted person. So when I went to IU, it opened up this world of performing. Like, I got my first role there. I had no idea how to be on stage. I had no idea. It's technique, though. Communication is technique. Acting is technique. I just thought acting was expressing yourself and that extroverted people were just natural at it. And I wasn't one of those people, so I couldn't act. I couldn't be emotional. I couldn't show my emotions. So when I had my first role there, it was a challenge and it hurt. It was hard, and I had a director who was fantastic, who trusted my personal strength enough to show his frustration with me that I wasn't where I should be. Or there's no should be. I just wasn't where I could be because I didn't have access to that information yet. So I went to IU getting my master's in opera performance with all of these doubts that I didn't belong there. Also, I'll tell you the story of how I got to IU, which is crazy. I did my audition, and this is a crazy story. And it fed into my mindset of I don't belong here. I don't deserve to be here. I got into only 2 schools. I auditioned everywhere. I got into only 2 schools. Boston Conservatory and IU. And my professor at University of Virginia had gone to IU, which is why I applied, but he was there for conducting. And IU is a huge school, and they take a lot of singers. And I got this letter from IU that you have this big scholarship. And I was like, me? Like, I must have killed my audition. Like, I didn't think I sang that well. And I felt like the reaction was like a little mixed. I was really surprised. So I got this letter and I was like, wow, okay, well, I'm gonna go to IU. I told Boston Conservatory I wouldn't go. I told IU I would go there, and I was so excited to have this letter. And I was packing up, I kid you not, 2 months out. I get this letter saying, you know, we need your first payment. What's it called when you have to pay to go to school? Tuition. Sorry, Germany. You can go to school for free. Yeah.
Right?
So consider master's programs in Germany. Honestly, it's like you'll pay 400 euros a year. Like, it's wild. Anyway, I look at this letter and I'm like, why are they? I have this scholarship. Why are they asking me for tuition? Like, I look at the scholarship letter and it said Mr. Eason for saxophone. I don't have a very common last name, but there was another person at the school who is a very fantastic musician with the last name Eason. They mixed up his scholarship letter and sent it to me. I'm not making this up. I actually have never really told this story publicly, but I think there's an element of luck in this career, and if you go with it, go with it. So I panicked because I had told Boston Conservatory, IU's really expensive, out of state. Like, I didn't organize for all of this. At this point, I'm an adult, like, I'm figuring all this out myself. I called the dean of the music school, and I got the secretary, and I explained what was going on. Panic on the other line. Horror, because she had realized, like, I had told all the other schools no. Like, I had no other option. And the dean of the music school called me back. This man is a great person and imparted a lot of really good knowledge philosophy knowledge, mindset knowledge into the school. But he apologized profusely and he said, we will give you the scholarship anyway.
Wow.
It was our mistake. We will give you the scholarship anyway. And so, but now in my mind, I'm showing up to a performance, like coming from an academic background, showing up with a mindset, I'm here and I don't deserve to be. I have this big scholarship that I don't deserve to have. That scholarship helped me get into a studio that I didn't deserve to be in. I felt like I didn't deserve to be in. And then I'm surrounded by people who did get those scholarships, who sang crazy good auditions. It's IU, so there are some amazing voices there. And I showed up for my first voice lesson, and my teacher wasn't in my audition, couldn't remember it. And she's like, oh, you got this scholarship, I'll take you. Because another stroke of luck, she had a student who, at the last minute, couldn't come do the master's and dropped out of the studio, and they have to have a certain number of students in her studio. So I got into Miss Kukro, Costanza Kukro's studio, who's like a great, she's taught Larry Brownlee, like she's great with coloratura voices. And because of this cancellation, last minute cancellation, she's like, oh, you have this scholarship, I'll take you, you must be pretty okay. I showed up for my first voice lesson and she was like, what? No technique, couldn't sing, I couldn't sing a high C. I mean, and I showed up in such a technical state that she was like a little panicking. And in my mind, like, mindset is so important in this job. The only person on stage when you're singing is you, and you're there with all of your thoughts, all of your doubts. If you choose to be there with your doubts, you don't have to have doubts. You can decide not to have them. It's hard, but you can decide. But at that time in my life, I was like, I don't deserve to be here. I have no technique. This teacher is like, where are you coming from? But I got very lucky. My dad said something to me before I went, because I was talking with him about this. And he was like, yeah, so get there and work so hard that you do deserve to be there. Like, become the singer that would have gotten that audition. Become the singer that, like, deserves to be in that studio. And so I just looked at Kukro and I was like, I don't know how to practice. I don't know how to learn music. I don't know how to prepare a role. I don't know how to act. And I was like, just tell me what to do and I will do everything. And she did. And she helped me immensely. And I got a role in the opera that season, in Xerxes, Atalanta, this like wonderful, like kind of secondary supporting soprano role in this opera. And that's when I had the experience of being in rehearsals for the first time and being around all these extroverted people. And I was like, I don't know how to express myself. I've gone on a journey from this question.
No, I
We
love
haven't
it.
even gotten to.
It's inspirational, really.
Yeah, so like, that's when I started realizing I latched on to technique. We have singing technique, but if you're insecure about your acting or emotions, like, start watching videos of, okay, what makes that person so warm when they're singing? What literally physically are they doing? What are they thinking? What decisions are they making as a person? Like, I have this concept of like a North Star. And you can have multiple people as a North Star, these people who are really inspirational to you. And this is from a podcast by Mel Robbins. I can't take credit for this, but she talks about like copying someone, then you assimilate their behaviors into your lifestyle, and then you innovate. You make it your own. And I think those 3 steps like can really help. But anyway, back to the story. I was at IU for about 4 years, and I grew gradually, and I felt like I got these roles. Like, never skip a step. Never think that something's like too small for you, because you can, every step you take is gonna like teach you something. And if you step too far, you're not gonna be prepared. But also, don't be afraid to leave at the same time. Like, I say that. But so I did Atalanta, and then I did Sophie and Werther, another like pretty small role, but then you're dealing with more complex music, bigger orchestra. We had like a French director who would yell at, like, you get put in these situations where you're like, this person is, but usually when somebody's like getting really into it with you, it's because they believe you can do something. So don't be afraid of somebody when they're like, no, this way. You're like, that person believes in me. You can like get scared of that, or you can say, this person sees that I can do what they're wanting me to do. And then, yeah, I sang a bunch of little other things. I took every opportunity that I could to try to grow. And then I finally stayed around at IU for the PD because I had the opportunity to sing Rosina. And that's a big, big role with lots to learn. Lots of recitative, lots of coloratura, lots of acting. And then I applied for this Georgina Joshi fellowship. So I felt like by the time I left IU, I was finally in a mindset of like, I survived being here. I was able to survive being here. Not that I deserved to, I didn't get to that point like my dad said, like, become the singer that deserved those things. I felt like I took some steps in that direction, and sometimes that's like all you can do, and that's worth it. But I applied for this Georgina Joshi fellowship, and I totally copped out. Like, I was like, I'm gonna take a Georgina Joshi fellowship to study the financial structure of opera in Germany, to look at like how the fest system works and how people are making money and everything like that. What would have been more brave is if I was like, I want that fellowship to go audition and become a singer. But I still didn't think I could do it. But it still got me a step closer. So I came to Berlin. I used the fellowship money. I came to Berlin for 3 months, and that money paid for me to go to the opera every night of the week. And I got in contact with coaches and people in the industry, agents, and everything like that. And my teacher was like, "You're gonna go all the way over there and not audition for anything?" And I was like, "Okay." So I set up some auditions, and just learning how to set up auditions in Germany was like a rodeo. And like figuring out at that time, it's changed a little now since the pandemic, but at that time, you really kind of audition for agents first, and then they're gonna send you to an audition. Or you can write some houses on your own for like the studio, which is like a young artist program, and you can get some auditions that way, although the agents are still sending people to studio auditions. So in my American mind, I was like, who am I to audition for a manager or an agent? Like, you look at their websites and they're like, they have this singer and that singer that you might have heard of. But the truth is, these agents have the people on their website, and then they have all these other younger singers that they're working with who aren't on their websites that you wouldn't think that they're working with. You can also work with multiple agents. It can be tricky, but when you're a young singer and an agent's like, maybe I could get this person a job. And the way it works is they're going to make money off of you, and you're going to make money because they're sending you to a job, negotiating a higher fee for you, getting that first foot in the door. So I went over on this scholarship, was there for 3 months, auditioned for agents, didn't find anything. I auditioned for one opera house. An agent was able to get me an audition at one opera house. And didn't get anything. I got home 2 days later, an agent calls me, he's like, I'll work with you. And I was like, I'm no longer in Germany. And they're like, bye. And I thought, I failed. Like, I got the glimpse of like how people could start a career in Germany. So I moved back in with my parents. When I got back it lasted 2 weeks, y'all. There's nothing like living with your parents to be like, what's next? But I still had this mindset of like, see, you proved it to yourself. You went over there, I did 4 or 5 auditions. Nobody wanted to hear you. You didn't get a job. That's it. Like, what's next? Business school, like, what are you gonna do? And then auditioning for saying, okay, I didn't get the first time, I'm gonna try again. That is a great skill. One of my good friends who's a tenor, he's been working in the fest system in Germany for ages. He's worked at 3 or 4 different theaters. His name's Mark Williams. Look him up. He's an incredible singer. Called me, and he went to New England Conservatory. He had just graduated, and he called me. He's like, I want to hear about your experience in Germany. He's also a really close friend of mine, so I was like, I failed. I didn't find anything. Ugh. We had this conversation that I'll never forget. I was like at home with my parents, and he was like asking me for advice, and I was like, you're asking me? I went over there. I didn't make it happen. And he was like, you only did 4 auditions. He's like, you know how many theaters are over there? And I was like, yeah, a lot. And then I was like, wait, I only did 4 auditions. I didn't truly give it a go. Like, I thought I had, but I didn't look under every rock. I just thought I had, because it was hard. And when something's hard, you don't want to keep looking under all the rocks. So we had this conversation. He's like, I'm going to move to Berlin. And I was like, I'm going to move with you. I'm going to scrounge together whatever money I can. And we moved over there together. We split a lot of the costs. We found the same lawyer. Like, we had 2 minds working towards this instead of 1. So it was a group project. And if you can make it a group project, that's really helpful, because you might encounter a dead end and somebody's going to come up with an idea like, why don't you try this? Hey, talk to this person. Like, see this, like, finding a teacher that really helped me was because of a recommendation from a friend, another singer. So we moved back to Berlin the day after the election, which is how I will remember it. I was in New York City. I flew out of New York City the day after the 2016 election. the date everyone will, I feel like, remember. And I moved to Berlin, and we like started that journey. And I remembered kind of like, okay, I've only done 4 auditions. What would 40 be like? And the truth is, I think I probably hit around 40 auditions, which is exhausting when you have like no money and you're like taking Flixbus everywhere, sleeping in hostels, waking up at 5 a.m. and like taking a train to this place, auditioning in this place. I finally found an agent who was willing to help me find things, because when you go over their audition, I knew that I wasn't going to walk on stage at the Semperoper and audition and sing Violetta. I was looking for, there are all sorts of different sizes of theaters in Germany, like from D houses, really small Landestheater, where you perform at all these different little tiny theaters, to C, B. I'm at a B house, which like pretty feels, it's a lot of work, and we have a great budget, and we have a full huge org. We did a ring cycle. I mean, and then you have A houses, which are like even bigger budgets. I knew I wasn't gonna go walk on stage at an A house and sing a leading role. So my path, I knew how to be a little different. I had to like find ways to sing repertoire that would get me hired as a papagena, like these smaller roles, something to just get me started. And that ended up being my first role. My debut was at Opera Comique in Paris with Komische Oper Berlin, singing papagena. For somebody who like was busy and couldn't go on that production. And I auditioned on a Wednesday, and like Friday they were like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll take you. My very first job was covering. So even before getting on stage, I covered Barbara Hannigan at Glyndebourne at this amazing world premiere piece, Hamlet, by Brett Dean. And that was an incredible experience. Because I wasn't walking, I mean, I almost walked on stage, which was a terrifying moment. If you're a cover and somebody gives you a call, your heart rate is just like, what? But I spent a summer being surrounded by, like, the London Symphony Orchestra was playing, Vladimir Yarovsky was conducting, and would like randomly show up at cover rehearsals, and you're like, terrifying. But being surrounded by these people, but then not having, like, I wasn't ready for the responsibility yet, but I could steal all of their knowledge. And also slowly work on this mindset. I don't belong here. I don't deserve to be here. Even when I got that job at Glyndebourne. So I went over, finally got my first contract, got an agent who got me this audition, covering at Glyndebourne. And I felt like it's a world premiere. It's a really crazy piece to sing. When I showed up at the audition, they sent us the music. We had to sing part of the music because there were like some extended vocal. I mean, it's not totally crazy, but it's really difficult music. I was the only one that ended up showing up at the audition because I think some of the other singers didn't feel like prepared, or they're like, I can't do this in the time. I drank a half a pint of beer and walked on stage with the music, and my hand was like, but I was the only one that showed up, which then allowed my mind to keep thinking, I was the only one showed up. That's the only reason why I got that job. I still don't deserve to be here. It took me a long time to like get rid of that thinking. So then that was my first job. I went back to Berlin, did a couple of guest productions in small roles, Papagena, Berta, and Barbara of Seville, which then I did another Berta, and then I got a fest position in Oldenburg. And that's when I really started singing consistently larger and larger roles, like building up to singing leading roles, like several a season. And that's kind of the trajectory. But it probably, that's the downside of social media. Something might look really nice, but behind it all is a lot of dirty work, really difficult moments when you're like, I don't know if this is gonna happen, and who am I, and why am I here, and tons of self-doubt, and tons of luck. Like, I cannot take credit for so many things that happen. Like,
but
yeah,
you were ready when it did.
True. Yeah.
Because inevitably that does happen. That an opportunity just falls into your lap, and if you're not ready for it, it's not an opportunity anymore.
Yeah. that reminds me of like a good story. So I got my fest position, and we do so many hours. Should we like stand up and stretch? Let's like.
We'll take a break in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Too, so.
I'll tell the story when we get back. Let's take a break and we'll pick up. What do you think? Y'all, I love talking about singing. This is great.
It's so fun.
There's so much to talk about, honestly.
He's
Um,
grounded.
10 more minutes.
Yeah, like where were we?
Luck.
Luck.
But you said something great, being prepared.
Be prepared when that moment happens.
Absolutely.
That you will feel like that moment is luck. But if you're not ready for it,
Yeah.
then it's not really luck when it lands. You know, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because these opportunities happen. It's Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah.
And so you have to be right there when something goes wrong. And it's really kind of a party trick. And if you do it well, people will remember that.
Mm-hmm.
For
Yeah.
sure.
That made me, I remember what story that made me think of. I'd only been at my theater for a couple years, and I was still singing not the main roles. Like I had a couple, and they had another soprano there who was incredible, and she got sick, and we were doing Lucia di Lammermoor and La Sonnambula, and I was singing the secondary female role in La Sonnambula. So of course I was surrounded by the music all the time, and everybody knows, like, a lot of coloraturas know the like this super well known aria at the end. So I had already been working on the aria, and I thought, I'm in rehearsals every day with this amazing conductor, listening to an amazing soprano. I'm gonna learn the role, see what she's doing, see what I can steal from her. And I just prepared myself, and I learned the role. She got sick, and I got to sing the role, and I got to make that role debut as Amina. But here's the other side. So I prepared like 90%, and I knew she was singing Lucia, so I also learned Lucia. But I didn't go 100%. I didn't memorize it. I didn't super coach it. I didn't memorize it. She was still sick. I got to sing a Generalprobe of Lucia, but I didn't perform it because I didn't prepare all the way. So while I did have the advantage of, those are two really big roles. It would have been hard to like memorize them both.
And a Generalprobe is just like a general rehearsal.
The final dress rehearsal.
Final dress rehearsal. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and without a Lucia, like, one of our conductors or pianists would have had to sing the whole thing like falsetto with a microphone from the side, and that's like not a fun way to do a rehearsal. But it was an opportunity for me to sing something without the pressure, without audience, to see how it fit. But moral of the story is, I prepared, but I do sometimes imagine, like, what if I had really gone absurdly all the way and prepared like for something that probably never would happen? I would have been in a position to walk on and sing a dream role. But I didn't go 100%. But I did at least still get that other opportunity of like, okay, I prepared Amina and I got to sing that, which was still one of my most favorite experiences on stage to this day, and the most I've sweated ever. I think I should have burned the gown after I sang that. Ooh. But yeah, that's so true. Like, if you're like at a young artist program, or you have the opportunity to like go watch rehearsals and like learn the notes, learn the role, even if it's something that like you think, okay, maybe this is one of those situations where I'm in a production and I just have a little role, but I can learn the lead, or I can learn this other role, and they don't get sick. Years later, somebody might ask you to learn that role, and you will already have it prepared. You'll be like ready to go, or you'll be asked to audition for it, and you're like, I know that. I can bring the aria into an audition and rock it because you've known it for years already. Like, learn as much repertoire as you can, because then you're also just going to get the skills of like learning how to learn, which it's hard to learn a whole opera and memorize a whole opera. There are tons of tips and tricks? Well, that's hard to say. But it's like another thing. You gotta sing, but then it's another technique and another skill that you have to build. It's a hard one, I think. But yeah. What other questions like were you guys thinking of? Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of aria we should prepare for audition?
Great question. So, this handout I gave you is full of a random assortment of things. They're like the data on performance numbers, but also the second thing down is what is being performed in Germany. So there's this amazing website called Opera that you can look up all the agents, their contact information, all the theaters in any country, their contact information if you want to write them. And it's a database of all the singers and all the repertoire they're singing. And it also has like amazing data. So I pulled up what's being performed in Germany this year. The top performed opera is Magic Flute, Hansel and Gretel, Nozze di Figaro, Die Fledermaus, Carmen, Traviata, Bohème, Don Giovanni, Tosca, and Barber of Seville.
So usually they like to listen to the most popular.
Exactly.
They will always perform this kind of opera.
Yeah. And so that's one side of the story. So there are two factors when you're trying to decide what to audition for in Germany, especially. What is generally being done? So if you have, and this list doesn't change that much from year to year. So if you're also in this stack of papers that I sent you guys is, where is it? This is from a book from 1987, which is sadly still pretty current based on, it's the Fox system, it doesn't change so much. But here is Zauberflöte, Tosca, Traviata, a lot of the operas I just mentioned. And then there's a chart and all the different voice types. And it's going to say, so you know the repertoire that's generally done in Germany, and you're where's soprano on here? Lyrische Sopran. It's going to tell you, okay, you need to be singing Pamina. In Carmen, you're going to want to learn Michaela's aria. That's exactly what they're casting for. You know what's being performed, and here's all those arias, all those roles that are in your voice type. So if you learn all of that repertoire, you're going to be really, really in good position. And I would say have an aria that expresses who you are, that fits as much into that as you can. Yeah.
And what kind of language is the first choice? For example, if I go to Germany, so do they prefer to listen to German or Italian? I don't know.
So there's a lot of Italian being done there. So definitely have one or two Italian arias, especially when you're singing bel canto repertoire. If that's what you're leading with, definitely have one or two choices on there. So like O Quante Volte, something with a little, that has like a good amount of color to it in. And if you're really confident with your German and you've coached the heck out of it, I would bring something like Pamina. Bring and it can be, look at operetta repertoire. There's also some really good German operetta arias that are beautiful. But you're definitely going to want to make sure there's German. Everyone says you have to have a Mozart. I have gone into auditions without Mozart before, for whatever reason. But I do suggest like having a Mozart aria. What would this would probably be something from, we got Nozze di Figaro, Don Giovanni, although those are difficult audition arias. We can talk specifics too. If you have like a list, we can kind of look at it, what Germans would be expecting. But if you can sing anything from Zauberflöte, like Magic Flute, prepare it and bring it to an audition. So there's your Mozart. Bel canto, and then in Germany, unless you're singing specifically for that repertoire, I wouldn't say that you have to have a French piece.
Okay.
But Michaela, though, is like a great aria. You show it off. I'm American, so sometimes I've brought English, like one English piece. I also love to do like new music and work with composers, so I'll usually bring like some weird modern piece that the pianist is like, and nobody has ever asked for it.
Jazz style is very different from the classical style.
But I put it on the list so they know who I am, and I don't care that they'd never ask for it. You know what I mean? And it's kind of unnecessary that I do that, but I'm also, you want to express who you are too. You're doing that within a system. Yeah.
I have a question to dovetail off of that. So, if you're auditioning for die Zauberflöte, obviously it is a Singspiel, Operetta.
Mm-hmm.
Will they most likely speak to you in German to see how well you speak it? Because there is dialogue.
So, yeah, and I would prepare. Good, I'm glad you said that. Like, I would prepare a German dialogue. Even if no one ever asks you for it, I've ended up in shows where I have a lot of German dialogue, and when it's not your Muttersprache, your mother language, it can be terrifying. But it's a really good experience to learn a German dialogue and work it with a really good diction coach, so you feel really confident. Because it is, I believe, and I have seen this, it is possible to sing a fantastic Pamina with fantastic German dialogue when you are not German. Yeah, and you just have to work a little extra hard, and sometimes the diction, I'm gonna get murdered for saying this, sometimes, in my opinion, the diction can be often clearer because you have this extra focus on your diction. Because even Americans, even when I work on an English piece, I'm working on the diction too, because it's for the theater. It's different. You have to enunciate differently. So, yeah, but I would definitely bring, if you're auditioning for a Dienführung, like abduction from the Seraglio, bring a dialogue. Yeah, because that's another piece with that can have a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
And then if they hear your dialogue, they might think, oh, she could do some German operetta. And then you're all of a sudden a lot more hireable. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think dialogue is harder than singing.
I agree.
Now,
How to
question
memorize.
going into the more technical aspects of Deutsch. Is it better to just use Hochdeutsch as like a, let's say, because when I speak, let's say I have a bit more of a Bayerisch type of.
Schwäbisch.
Yeah. So, but for auditions, Hochdeutsch doesn't fail you.
Yeah, I would say that's the standard for sure. And I wrote it on here too. There's a book called, it's in German, but you can find like the corresponding videos online, which are hilarious. They were made in like the 70s. But it's like the German diction for singing, and it's called the Kleine Hai. And it's, where did I write? I put a list of books on here. Did I write this on here? I bet I should have.
Because there's some weird differences. Like if you go to Berlin, everyone says ich. But if you go to like other places, they'll say ich, which is Hochdeutsch, or ich.
Yeah. And then take that a step forward, and you're saying, you're just speaking in German. Now that sh sound has to be all the more present, has to be more forward, just like Italian diction. When you're singing, you might have the Germans don't really pronounce, to my American mind, the German R is more like English R. Like, I come from the South, like, we're like, oh. Like English, or like, how are you doing there?
Yeah.
And the Germans, that feels like the same R to me in German, but when you're singing, you're gonna roll your R a little bit. If it's like Strauss or Wagner or something like that, like
Mein Herz.
And it's really forward, almost like, but you would never speak German like that. But that's why there's this book, the Kleine Hai, the Kunst des Sprechens, the art of speaking. And you can like order it online and watch the videos, even though it's in German, but you can hear what theatrical German is. This correct way of speaking on stage.
So in the dialogue part, we still use our singing diction or the speaking diction. Singing like the heads, like the same like singing. Okay.
I would. But then I say that, and you'll be in a production where a director wants you to be super cool and like have like a Berlin accent. And I've been lucky, like the first piece I did, Orpheus was unfair, but we did it in German, Offenbach. And there's a ton of dialogue in that piece, and I sang Eurydice. And the director was like, had this concept that Eurydice and Orpheus were like this like star couple, and he was like Jonathan Bell violinist, and I was his like wife, and we're getting a divorce, and I get taken into the underworld or whatever. And I was like, that's great. So can character into an American actress so that it didn't bother anyone that I had American accent. As long as you can understand the text, it was fine that I had a little American accent. It went with the character. So there are like different ways around that. And accents are, I mean, then we start getting into identity and what identity we're allowed to see on stage. And opera is such an international, cultural affair. We should have people from all over the world on stage. As long, in my opinion, maybe this is just because I'm not a native speaker, but in my opinion, I love, as long as I can understand the text and it's clear. If I hear an accent, I think it's beautiful, and I could care less that, yeah. Of course, we all try to work towards, but working towards clear diction is different than working towards accentless German, I think, if that makes sense. Yeah. But it's absolutely possible to reach that level. I think of. It takes a lot of work with a diction coach, though, for sure. Yeah. But then you have those skills forever. Yeah. That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. So prepare a dialogue. I would say look at the score of Zauberflöte or Mozart's Die Entführung aus dem Savoy for dialogue, and just like learn one of the little paragraphs, and then it's in there forever. Yeah. Yeah. Good question. Anybody? What do we got? Oh, let me tell you what's in this handout, actually. So we talked a little bit about what to sing at auditions. There's a huge list of repertoire for every voice type. So like if you're, dramatic coloratura soprano, like everything you should learn for an audition is like, there's a list. Yeah. It's a little outdated, and you can mix and match if you're like, that aria does not suit me. But it's good to kind of like learn what's in your FOF.
And another thing, should we choose some artists like challenge us, or you sing something like comfortable? Because I remember you just said you sang a piece, nobody chose this one, and you sang it, you did it. So I don't know if we will prepare one
like a challenge piece. It's up to your personality and how you're gonna feel in an audition. There was a time when I was auditioning where I was like, I'm gonna take whatever risk I need to take to try to get myself forward. Now I feel like I would only go into an audition singing something I know is gonna go great. Something that I've already sung on stage a million times, that I can roll out of bed and sing. But for a while, I had to push myself forward and be a little uncomfortable in auditions. But I also think it's always great to be working on something that maybe only you and your voice teacher and a coach hears. That is not, that you think, in 5 years I would love to sing this role, but I shouldn't sing it for an audition. But I think when you have a big audition, you'll know if you should really put yourself out there and sing something that's a little, because if it's worth it to walk out there and maybe fall on your face and fail, because the opportunity is so great of an opportunity, it can be sometimes good to stretch yourself, and because a lot of times you're going to walk out there, get a burst of adrenaline, and have practiced this role for 6 months and done everything within your power to make that experience go well, and it's gonna go well. Sometimes you fall flat on your face, but sometimes it's worth it. Yeah. No, that's good. But yeah, look through this thing. There's like a list of my favorite books, which seems really nerdy, but a lot of them have to do with singing. Like I Don't Go Anywhere. This is like Lamperti. Oh, it's upside down. Yeah. Vocal wisdom. Y'all get this book. It is waspy. Like, he's like, singers these days have no idea what they're doing. But it's very useful. It talks about breath. Because that's what singing is. Yeah, there's like, I put a lot of things in here that are like resources, like for health resources for your voice. because when we're using our bodies so much and something happens, or you go to the doctor and you're sick and you need a medication, medications can really affect your voice. Not to like freak anyone out. Like our bodies are resilient. But like you need to know not to take aspirin and sing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a blood thinner.
It's a blood thinner.
Oh, I never thought about that. I don't take aspirin, but I still never thought about it.
Yeah. Or you have a splitting headache and you need to take aspirin. How long until you can sing? You know what I mean?
Knowing the half-life.
Yeah. 10 hours, I think. Look it up. But there's a great book called The Owner's Manual to the Voice. Has like a list of anything that can go wrong, diet things, like when you get bronchitis, like what steroids are going to do to your voice, like all of this kind of stuff, because your body is your instrument, so you have to kind of like learn how to use it. And you can also like find things that work to your advantage, and like what doesn't work for you. It's different for everybody, but it's really important to know if you have a recital or you have rehearsals or something and you get sick, like you need to know when to not sing, like what it feels like when you shouldn't sing, and then what it feels like when you're just not feeling great, but your chords, everything's healthy, you're not going to do any damage. So there's some resources to kind of help figure that out, which is really good. And it also helps your brain be like, I know I'm fine, I don't have to freak out. Yeah. Language resources, which can help. I think some of them are for German, but can help with Italian. Yeah, there's a list of competitions that can help. So competitions are a good way to get over to Germany as well and get like an agent and meet people. And also the German version of young artist programs, which are opera studios, and they pay a salary just like having a fest position. They pay a very low salary, and the salaries are printed in here as well, so you can see like financially what you're looking at. But most of the major theaters have a studio with like 1 or 2 positions. Like my theater has right now a tenor in the studio, and we had before that like a soprano, and that soprano or mezzo, I can't remember, mezzo, but then ended up joining the fest ensemble. So she spent a year with the theater doing tons of small roles and some big roles too, and then joined the ensemble. And like I've had American friends who have gone to do the studio in Frankfurt, and 10 years like later they're still singing at the same theater. So that's another way in when you just come out of school to take a step that's not like right into, that's a really hireable role, because they're already thinking this person just finished their schooling, they're not totally finished, and they give you support. They have usually a voice teacher working with you. You're getting to watch rehearsals all day, every day. You're learning from your colleagues. So that's like, look at the studios. There's a list of studios in here, but
So they do have a voice teacher.
some do and some don't. Our theater doesn't, but it's a smaller place. But like I think like Hanover, yeah, they bring some people in. They usually have like a couple master classes that you work with like real amazing people with, and then I think the biggest thing of that is like just getting to watch people do their job, and then you learn all the other skills that aren't just singing. Like you can see them breathing and seeing because there are so many different techniques. Like you guys have had a lot of master classes, you have your own teachers, and it's really easy to hear opposing things. Like I might say some things tomorrow that are like, what? This person told me the totally opposite thing. Because our instruments are inside of us, and one thing feels opposite to the other thing, even if physically they're doing the same thing. Like there are dichotomies all the time. What was my point in saying this? Yeah, but like good information can come from anywhere, but with technique, the best technique you can have is one you can use. That's all that matters. If you can use it, that's a good technique. If you can't, you gotta work on it. So you'll hear all sorts of different people doing different things that work for them, that you would think, if I did that, if I like belted like super high, I would be like, like what? Yeah, but watching your colleagues, then you pick up all these other, for me, when I first got to my fest, I was like, how am I gonna learn and memorize all this music? Like, what? And then there was a guy at our theater who's Kammersänger, which means the government has awarded him like this special, like, you're a really amazing singer. And he's been at our theater for 30 years. He's done literally hundreds of roles. And I was like, how am I gonna memorize all this and like learn all this? And he was like, movement, go for a walk. Like write the text and take it with you on a walk, and he's like, forward movement. And I was like, why is that magical? I'm sure there's some like brain body connection that like when you're learning, it just goes in easier if you're like physically active. But all these little tricks, but everyone has a different one. Like some people are like have their note cards, or some people are just like look at it once and they're like, okay, I hate those people. Like, why are they like that? But yeah, and like everyone has a different way of like learning a role, but that's what you pick up when you're around it all the time. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, is it common for someone before they start into fest, there was like an opera like an opera choir before they?
This is a good question. Opera choruses. So this in Germany is like a totally different job, which is like can be good or can be bad. But so people either go the soloist route and go the fest route, or they can do opera chorus work, which is insanely fulfilling, pays really well, offers like a really stable lifestyle, and the contracts are a lot more stable. Like if you get a chorus job and you stick around and you really enjoy it, you can feasibly be on that stage singing, doing that until you retire at 65. And that's just what your whole career is. And there are thousands of singers in Germany doing just that. And you get to walk on, like I just think of like the singers at like the Semperoper or Deutsche Oper Berlin, and they just show up for work. They get rehearsed. They don't, you can just like leave your work at the opera house. They show up, they're rehearsed, somebody's playing the notes for them, helping the choir. It's like, choir rehearsal. So you're not doing all that extra work that a soloist has to do at home alone. And then they get to walk on stage with like the biggest names in opera and sing amazing productions and still like be doing, and sometimes small roles, which can be really exciting. And they're on stage like almost every night of the week, rehearsals every morning, and that's their life, their whole life until they're 65. I just think that's like, I'm like, why are people not like climbing over each other to work in opera courses? It's like, I never knew that was an option. And then I like went the soloist route and I was like, oh, it's fun. And they really have great lives and they're surrounded by music constantly. And a lot of my friends who do it are like still singing roles, like solo roles as well. And it's just like an amazing thing. So, and those auditions, I don't know so much about this, but I can ask like some of my friends and send you guys like some resources where to find the job postings and where to go do the auditions. Yeah, and for that, like your German has to be pretty good, but once you get a job in an opera chorus, like you're gonna learn German because you're gonna hear it all the time. Yeah, but that's a really good question and a really important. Like I don't think a lot of people realize like there's a whole like career option there that is amazing. Yeah. I wish I had known that sooner, for sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
What would you say the difficulty level is in switching? Like if you start chorus and decide you want to switch into the solo part of it?
That's a really good question. It is hard, yeah. It's also hard going the other way. If you're a soloist and you want to do chorus work. Because Germans, for whatever reason, I think Americans have like a really more flexible view on this. Because I grew up singing, that's like, I'm a chorister, like, and we're used to like young artist programs, for example, where you're like, okay, I'm singing in the chorus for this piece and I have a little role in this piece, and like, there's so much, way more crossover, for sure.
Church gig.
Yeah, like got my church gig, and then I'm gonna go do an opera rehearsal, and then go sing like a cappella with my a cappella group. Germany, for whatever reason, and I'm not sure why, but it goes along with the Fox system, is like everyone has their voice type, and this is what they sing. And in a theater, there are like, my theater, there are over 400 employees, and I sing. this person does the costume, this person does my makeup. There's no overlap. Like, the director directs, the light person does the lighting. Like, everyone has their jobs, and it all comes together. In America, it's like, I'm a singer, but I'm also going to do my makeup, and the director is like, the conductor might be also the pianist, and like, there's a lot more crossover. But in Germany, for whatever reason, if you're a soloist, you're a soloist, and if you're a chorister, you're a chorister. Although, I think America also has its influences on Germany, and that people have done it. It's hard, but it's not to say it's impossible, for sure. Like, I have a friend who's in the chorus at our theater, and he's just really great. He's got a really great voice, and he learns music super fast, and actually, he's just really good. And because of that, he's like in the chorus, and then they're like, can you do this role? Can you do that role? Can you do this major role? That normally, like, the baritone, like one of the baritones in the ensemble, solo ensemble, would be singing, but he's doing that out of the chorus, and then getting paid on top of his chorus salary to do the solo roles. And yeah, but if you're really excellent at something, you'll find your way. Yeah. That's a good question too. Yeah. Y'all, I don't want to talk at you forever. We have like 10 minutes left.
I don't have an answer for that. Is there something?
Right? Please keep that in the video. Like, that was good dramatic timing. Yeah, what else I have all sorts of like topics, and we'll talk about more technical things tomorrow when we actually start singing. But yeah, in this packet there's sample email. It's actually a letter because this book was written in the 1980s. It's a sample letter, so if you want to write to German theaters, you want to write to studios or write for a chorus job, it's a sample letter in German with the English translation, and you can just pop it into an email. And use Google Translate or DeepL. DeepL. Do you guys know about this translating service? Yeah. Or ChatGPT.
I was gonna say ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Got you.
Be like, ChatGPT, write me an email that says, like, I would like to audition for your opera company in very polite German, and my name is this. Yeah. And my German's at a point where I can do all this myself, but I still even rely on that sometimes to write a really professional, höflich, polite email, which is wild that we have access to that.
That's the thing about German too, is there's so many different suffixes and cases.
Yeah.
That
If you want to
how do you
get,
address someone like Sie, ich, or
yeah, and like all these little small words in German. So use that to your advantage. But yeah, so there's like an email in this packet. There's also, there's like this little mindset pyramid. I talked a little bit about this, like my mindset moving to Germany, that I had a lot of self-doubt, and that's something I've really struggled with. And I think there's not a singer on this planet who hasn't like gone through something in their minds that's painful, and it can be happening to you when you're on stage. Terrifying fear of forgetting a word, crippling doubt that you don't deserve to be where you are, that you're not good enough, or you'll never be able to do this one thing with your voice, or getting over things like that, in my opinion, should be talked about more openly, because it is part of singing. Because singing is going to come out of our imaginations and all of our ideas, and whatever's in there, it's like an orange. Whatever's inside of that orange, you squeeze an orange juice is going to come out. If you're full of fear and self-doubt, when you're on stage doing an audition or you're put in a stressful situation, that has the possibility of coming out. So, I mean, you guys have been doing masterclass after masterclass. I think it's one of the most stressful. I get really nervous singing in front of my peers. I don't know how you guys feel. I would rather sing in front of a group of like old people I've never met.
That's what I always say.
Yeah. So if you guys have anything like that, also, like, I'm open to talking about anything. And like, when I'm here, any questions go. You can literally ask me anything about like lifestyle, like your personal life in Germany, like what the job requirements are and what a toll that can take, or the opposite. a toll. It can like immensely grow your personal life. You meet incredible people from all over the world. You encounter so many different cultures. But yeah. Okay. We have like a couple minutes. Any last questions? Yes, I'm ready.
So your family, I assume, is still in the States. How difficult is it being away from them like that?
It's difficult. Yeah. It's something that we've had many conversations, and I feel like there's like so many things in life. There's not just like a solution. There's just conversations that develop over time. And we try to shoot for some sort of satisfaction with how the situation is. So my parents are, they're still in the States. They came to visit me 2 weeks ago, but it's really hard for them to travel so far. I mean, y'all, jet lag is like real. And then when you're older and you're not used to traveling, you don't speak the language, and you're doing everything on your own, and you're walking everywhere for the first time, because they have a different lifestyle. They were exhausted. And I felt bad because they came to see Rosenkavalier and Ballo and Maschera, 2 very long operas. And they're sitting through Rosenkavalier, which is like all in German, and they're just like, like they came all the way here, and I would have slept through the whole thing too if I was, not even if I was jet lagged. But yeah, it's not easy, and then you have to confront things like, I plan to live the rest of my life in Germany because I love living there. I found it's where I feel like I'm supposed to be, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And when you find that in life and you think, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, don't let go of that, even if there's guilt, shame, guilt, all these difficult decisions that you have to make with your family. It's really hard to navigate. I wish I had an easier answer, but in my experience so far, we've just had multiple conversations that have just developed over time, and the clearer you can get about what you want, the easier I think it is when you communicate, like, I am doing this. This is what I want. This is what I feel like I'm meant to be doing. Other people can then decide how they're going to react to that, which is hard. It feels very selfish. But I do try to go home as much as I can. And technology, y'all, has changed everything. I Skype my whole family every Sunday, almost every Sunday. So, and I try to get home as much as I can. But also when you think about it, if I moved to a different place in the US and my family was like, it took me, when I was in grad school at IU, it took me like 8-hour drive to get back home to Virginia. It's an 8-hour flight from Germany to get to like Atlanta airport or something like that, and then I see my parents. So I'm physically very far away, and if there's an emergency, it like, you think, what if there's an emergency and I need to get back and that sort of thing? I can't just like be there in a couple hours. But the truth is, in the States, I also couldn't have just been there in a couple hours. It just felt different. Yeah. So that's a good question too. It's individual though. It's based on, some people want to have families. Some people want to be close to their parents. Some people want to only have that relationship with their family that they have great week together around holidays. I haven't been home for Christmas in 7 years. If you have a fast job, you're not going home. You're not going to be with your family on Christmas unless they come to see you, because you're going to be on stage on Christmas singing Hansel and Gretel. So it's up to you if that's like something. But if you're a guest, if you're working as a guest, you have the ability to say, I'm not taking that contract because that's my mother's birthday, and you can choose that. Yeah. So there's some flexibility there. Yeah, good question. Yeah.
So they offer different kind of contract.
So fast is salaried position. You are engaged to work at that house all year round, full time. And guest is project to project. So you might be at different theaters for like 4 weeks at a time, here or there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like a guest, you can choose some performance, or they will choose for you.
So
They pay each performance.
pay per performance.
Okay.
But that also means if you're sick, you're not gonna
Get
get
the
paid.
salary
Mhm.
at that time.
which can be very stressful. Yeah. Yeah.
So most of the singers prefer the full time.
Well, there are advantages to being guest. You generally make more money. You're gonna sing roles that are perfect for you. You get to pick and choose. You can choose to have time off. If you're a singer that's like, I don't want to do 70 performances a season. I only want to sing bel canto. Or I only want to sing Italian Verismo. That's all I want to do. Or I just want to sing Queen of the Night. Or Wagner. Only Wagner, big repertoire. Then, if you're guesting, you can choose what repertoire you're singing.
So the time is more flexible.
Yeah. So there are give and takes to both. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So real quick about tomorrow, we have like 1 minute left. We're gonna do some singing tomorrow. Oh my gosh, Siri, really? She like wants to be part of us. I think what I would love is if you guys brought. We've talked a lot today. You guys kind of know what I do. Bring a piece to me that you really want to sing for me, if that makes sense. Does that sound like a good plan?
Sounds good to me. Just let me know what those are so I can tell Yvonne.
I have a question for you about that, because we were talking about, because I want to work on like the chest and all of that. So any piece that I'd have that do that obviously is not going to be my opera rep. So I don't know. What do I bring?
Bring your opera rep.
Okay.
And we are gonna like jazz it up with some chest voice.
Okay.
Which will everyone is terrified of technically talking about chest voice, and I'm like, I'm gonna go there, okay?
So like, what?
It's really important.
Can I show you my list? Because I don't know what piece would like
Wait.
what would work best for that. Because I have no clue.
Yeah, show me your list afterwards, and we'll
I'll
talk.
have it.
And if you have any questions, you're like, I don't know this one, ask me, and we'll figure it out. Yeah. So bring something that you really love, that you feel like really great about. And I don't know how much the master classes have been like a lot of technical stuff, but I'm happy to talk about technical stuff even if it gets a little.
So there's 8 singers. 4 of them are in my studio, 2 of them are from a different university, and 2 of them are from another studio at Florida Atlantic University.
Okay.
However, I think that we've had a lot of talk about, this is an opinion of one person, and as far as I'm concerned, just say what's on your mind, because at the very least, everyone has an assessment, and how they correct the assessment, you might be a little different, but most of the time, people have the same assessment.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I'm happy if you like jump in and you're like, I'm thinking about it this way.
No, I will not, I promise you I won't do that.
Okay. If you do, if you're like, no, like, I'm happy with that too.
No, I would rather students, at least from my studio, start to process what people say at a young age, rather than having a teacher come around and put their arm around you and say, listen to only me, or you're going to be okay, or sometimes you have to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. I agree. And I said earlier, like when I went to IU, I found this teacher and I was like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. She did. But the one thing she was open to other inputs. Like she was like, go to this person and ask them that, go to that. And the better you are at getting input from all places around you, processing it for yourself, the better off you're going to be, for sure. Like you mentioned when I first got here, just like staying curious. Yeah, absolutely.
That is like the key to life. Yeah. So the more you can do that about your technique, staying curious but not judging yourself. That's a hard line. So when we work on technique tomorrow, and for me personally in a masterclass, which I'm like going over, but just this one thing, when we're working on technique tomorrow and you're like, we're trying to do something that feels different in your body, for example, it can start to feel emotional and you're like, why can't I do this? Like, I can't do what she wants me to do. It's okay if you can't do it tomorrow. It might be a year from now and being like, oh, that's what supporting means. That's what that random lady said in that masterclass, staying open. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, it's okay. Yeah. They're just ideas. So, yeah. I'm pumped to do some singing tomorrow. It's my favorite thing. Yeah. Yeah, so let me know what you guys are going to sing tomorrow, because I'll, like, research a little bit.
And definitely let me know, too.
And let
And let
pianist.
Yvonne
Yeah, he's
know. Absolutely. Well, I want to give one final round of applause for Martha.
Thank you.
to my apartment really quickly, but I'll come back as well. So
Okay.
cool. Thank you all.
Thank
so much.
you.
Also gonna go back. Yeah, like if you have any questions about what you want to say.
Dr. Hutchings,
Yes.
if
Yeah,
I want to
I
sing
have
Archies tomorrow, is it impossible?